All right, welcome back and congratulations. You just made it through two whole languages and a lot of concepts. As we are essentially closing off the part three, which will be particularly to Python, uh, I'm not going to reiterate all the details from the previous, but I'm going to compare. However, we will be focusing a lot more in importing outside packages so that we can basically see and get an idea of how these extra frameworks and the other 85% works, right? Uh, Next series is we'll go into demystifying programming structures. So we'll be able to go into more detail on loops and program control, which is still within the 15% mark. I would say up to this point, if you understand all the pieces, you are at about a 7 to 8% understanding. Now, with the next series, we go more into the control of a program versus what we did really here as the code blocking, saving, and using of variables. That's kind of our focus, right? And a little bit of debugging with the print statements. So as we continue then, right now we're going into our Python, but futuristically, in the next videos, we'll go into the control structures. All right, so let's begin. So on the left, we have our C++. On the right, we have our Python. When we're working with essentially any language, the structure is going to be the same. I've shown you three languages so far, and I can literally structure them in a similar manner. The structure itself is perspective to how you want that program to load and work, while some things are important, like prototyping or creating functions above the main. Other things are not so much, like when I use that print stuff, right? Or when I use certain variables. Those are all up to our particular perspective. So let's start with a little bit about libraries, since you can basically look at these two comparisons, and we can go into more detail about the code blocking system here, because in essence, we're looking a little bit about these curly braces being gone. We'll go into that. But for now, as line 1 states, let's look at libraries and kind of get an overview on those particular details. So I wanted to use Discord, and I wanted to basically import the particular framework. Initially, it didn't work because I didn't have it installed. However, remember, all you have to do is do a quick search. How to install a particular piece. In my case, I searched pip install Discord, and it was one of the first pieces right here. We can essentially also install it this way. So there's multiple ways. Let me just double check. This is how I installed it with the py command. But potentially, this would have been the same thing. Yes. So essentially, you have multiple ways to basically install these frameworks. In this case, we used pip. Pip is a built-in Python package manager. And what pip really does in the end is just grab extra values and code from an online database. From there, it installs the information on your computer and you're able to use it locally. On the other hand, the initial way that it was done, there's two ways to install, right? So first was the pip install, and the other one, which is kind of out of frame now, the other one I can actually grab here. Remember in command prompt, here's a very good pro tip for command prompt. You can press up to go back the commands that you actually entered. So here's the previous command of me installing Discord Pi, specifically the voice version. And then this one, which is specifically just connecting with a token and then managing the text chats. So I installed the voice version as I'm going to be playing around with it personally. But I do have a bot that does basic chat management and statistical analysis on stocks. So with that in mind then, that's how you install any package possible. And after I've installed that package, I had a kind of comment here because I had some issues with it. Import could not be, oh, there's a problem. Discord, so it just might be a particular issue with my plugins in Visual Studio Code not being able to identify where the actual package was installed. This is actually a very pretty good tutorial on how to manage your own runtime environments. All right, so I had to do a little bit of searching around. Pylance is good as a basic compiler or interpreter. this extension, right? So we were looking at the Pylance extension, right? I closed it, so let's look at it again. If you want to use Pylance or Python in your projects, first you have to install a plugin called Pylance. But the problem here that I just realized is Pylance uses a built-in Python interpreter that is not the same as the one that you would install on the computer. With that in mind, that means when I install those pip packages down here, they're not going to Pylance. They're going to my installed source of the location here with the mini condo. So if I wanted to basically convert that, I did a little bit of a search, and it's good to be aware of the ability to search and the words you use, right? So the solution is here. I used this particular query to find the issue. Let's take a look at it. First, this was the error that was given to me by Pylance, but I replaced Discord with an asterisk. This is important. In programming, an asterisk is a wild card, meaning anything can be inside. A letter, a word, a whole bunch of sentences, but the key is that you're trying to match a existing string online from someone else that has been having a similar issue, right? We're going to basically search, hey, is anyone else having a problem with this error? But it doesn't matter if it's Discord or whatever. I'm just going to put an asterisk because technically I don't mind. And someone installed a Python database client, and now it's not accessible or accessed by Pylance. This is the exact same keyword that I was using. The error you show is given by an editor. That's the issue. My Visual Studio Code editor, not my Python interpreter. I need to use this particular command inside of Visual Studio Code by using Alt-P, or was it Control-P? There it is. Oh, that's the file browser. Was it? No, Control-Shift-P? There, I think that's the one. Control-Shift-P might be the one. All right, so from here, Python, good, that's the one. Select interpreter. Okay, good. So that's the problem. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. I do the app data local programs Python. This is kind of a temporary file space. Basically app data that could be used potentially by a program, but once you uninstall the program, you don't use this info anymore, and it either gets deleted or when you run a cleaner, it runs through here and cleans it out. But this is where it's pointing to, and that's kind of the problem. Select the workplace folder. I guess this is all that it's found. Select that workspace level. Oh, there it is. Okay, okay, there it is. So this is my actual mini conda install. Okay, that's good. Crashes the iSort server. I don't know. But boom, now we have our Discord without an error. Now, this part is not programming. This is technical, right? This is just IT stuff. This is moving files around, knowing how to use the directory, how to direct a particular program to look in a particular place, and it's all within the settings of that program that we were just working with, right? Key point, Python selects interpreter. C++ selects compiler. That's actually just changed the focus from the built-in interpreter, which is bare bones, right? Remember, when we install packages, you have multiple versions of these environments. You have a bare bones version that's just vanilla, and then you have packages that you include and you build to do more features. And depending on which framework you use, you may have access to everything or nothing. In fact, here we kind of normally have access to nothing. However, if you go to Google Colab, they give you the ability to play with a Jupyter notebook, which is a great little application for taking notes and running some code. But using that, you're able to essentially run Python directly in your browser, right? So you have some notes you can take. It's just straight up a text editor in one retrospect. The other is that I can go here and press play, and it's going to run the code sequence by sequence and run the pieces that are within that block, right? Now, what that means is basically it's going to give you the information and it's going to save the information in the variable as listed. If you have multiple blocks, like down here, if I didn't run the previous block and maybe it had some variables that are used here, then this block is not going to work. You got to run the top one first, create the variables, and then you go to here and run the next. So it is still sequential. It is from top to bottom. But in this notebook, you can run the sections separately. So you don't have to make one giant program. You can make a program here, program here, program here, or a function, or whatever. And from that point, you're able to run whichever one you want just by pressing the play button. If you want to make a whole program here, possible, a little bit meh, but it's great for taking notes. It's great for statistical analysis. And in this case, in this file, I'm doing path finding, finding the most optimal path between point A and point B. Now, the beauty of this system, you can import anything. For instance, let me make a new notebook. Import Discord .py. Run that. And TikTok. It's probably downloading it, actually. Oh, yeah, I can install it. Install discord.py. There we go. Now, I didn't have to look online. I didn't have to switch interpreters. I didn't have to play with technicals. So this is perfect for anyone that's just starting to program and you just want a workspace that works. You can install stuff without having to worry about where it's coming from. Google manages that part. This is almost like having God mode enabled in your programming environment. So back to where we were. So we installed our new framework with some craziness in between. We got some details. We can start using Discord if we wanted to. I'm not going to start using it yet. So what I am going to do, however, is go into our code blocking process of kind of what we did before, just kind of looking at the Python version of the code blocks. So here's the gist. We know code blocks in C++ and JavaScript require these curly braces to kind of separate and isolate this particular code from the rest. However, in Python, the only thing you need to remember is to put a tab after your def function call, and you do gotta basically put those the colon here. Put the colon there. But after you put the colon there, with this tab, you're able to basically write inside the function the code block. The code block would basically be this as compared to this, right? So it's the same idea, but again, remember the details here. C++, JavaScript, they don't care about spaces. You can write a single line program, and that's how we minify certain programs in JavaScript. We just remove all spaces, tabs, enters, right? We have programs that do this for us, so we can reduce the file size. So when a person loads up our JavaScript, it's smaller because it doesn't have fluff like spaces. But you cannot write that same single line process in Python. There's no semicolons first. It doesn't know where a line ends unless you press the enter key. Then the function. Well, the function is just a tab in from the definition and the semicolon. So you put that tab there, create the definition, define, print stuff, yada yada yada. And if you want to keep going inside and keep coding inside of the function, you just keep putting tabs. And then when you're done coding, you basically just go back a tab. And then you have a new area outside the function, right? So this would be inside. And then when we go back a tab, we go back out of the function. That's the biggest difference that will be kind of the hardest to adjust to, especially if you've been doing curly braces all this time with every single language that does it. Almost every language uses these curly braces. So it's a habit that will be difficult to get rid of if you're deciding to move into Python from any other language. If you're just starting now, you have a head start. You have no patterns. You have no habits. You have no set in stone stuff. You are fresh on the educational plate. You are able to absorb everything and understand the differences much better than someone that's been doing it for 10 years. I will leave you with 2 note pages that I've created as a somewhat of an overview of what we've gone through. One will be just an overview of a few languages, including some I haven't actually done, but they still fit within the mold of what we've learned. And then the second page is a more visual representation of the concepts that we've gone through for those that are more visual and creative learners. And with that said, thank you so much. Amazing. Congratulations for making it this far. Programming is a endeavor to overcome. And we'll see you in the next video as it comes out. I don't know what the name is yet, but I'll make it as soon as I think of the proper uh, naming system for these series, because I want to split them into small bite-sized pieces. I could have continued this particular series, but that would also kind of obfuscate the basics, right? These are the basics of these languages. But as we progress, we will get more advanced in those. So thank you again. Like and subscribe, comment, and leave me any feedback. I am a feedback machine. I will do as best as I can to fulfill those comments, especially if it's ideas that are confusing most of you. Then I will definitely make a follow-up video and make sure that those concepts and ideas are cleared up in a different way, because education comes in many flavors, and this video series kind of only scratches the single method of understanding. But there are other methods of understanding as well for any of those that may need it. So let me know, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.